Human resources have always been an asset for Africa, and yet there's the problem of the birth rate in African countries and in Benin. South Africa has a prison population of over 150,000. Some of those held behind bars are waiting to be released and reintegrated in their communities. Concerns are growing that the intense violence in Sudan's western Darfur region could spread to neighboring countries. Good afternoon. You're tuned into Gulf TV Africa. Welcome to the 1 p.m. news edition. I am ITUNU. The news and details kickstarting from the national scene. Human resources have always been an asset for Africa, and yet there's the problem of the birth rate in African countries and in Benin. Leaders consider it as a factor that may not serve the cause of development. What is the real situation? Details in the report.
The issue of birth control is an issue as old as time. In the context of the high cost of living and the gap between development and demography in Africa, it resurfaces every time. In Benin, it is the talk of the media and the public. The Beninese state plans to hold national meetings in this regard in the near future. Philippe Houssou, a Beninese executive, thinks it will be appropriate for birth control.
Ce n'est pas dans notre pratique de limiter les naissances. Et chez nous en Afrique, quand on dit que celui qui a beaucoup d'enfants est riche.
It is not in our practice to limit childbearing, and we in Africa, we say those who have many children are the rich ones. Today, the world has changed. The vision of today is not the vision of yesterday. We need to understand the laws of everyone having 1,000 children, having 30 or 40 children. The objective is to keep and be able to manage them so that tomorrow they can become someone better. If parents don't solve these problems of birthing many children, these children constitute nuisance in the society. So it is the responsibility of the government to pass judgment. It is compulsory that each of us know how many children we.
In Kenya, trade unions and others opposed the proposed bill, argue that the new taxes will further burden workers already struggling to cope with the high cost of living. Some of the changes in the new bill include a 35% monthly tax rate for persons earning above $500,000 Kenyan shillings and a mandatory housing tax deducted from employees' basic salary to help fund the government's ambitious housing plan.
Tabled before lawmakers for the first reading on May 4th, the 2023 Finance Bill, which seeks to amend various laws, is being met with opposition.
With each finance bill cycle, there's usually one or two proposals that are hot potato issues. I think this time around there are a number of proposals that are really contentious.
Both President William Ruto and his Treasury Cabinet Secretary have defended the new proposals, saying it is a projection of where the economy should head.
Every other tax that I have put, it is reasoned out. And by the way, I sat in this room with every ministry, every PS, myself, with my team, to interrogate the budget. Because I have to own up and take responsibility for everything that this government does.
The 2023 Finance Bill proposes a raft of tax changes, mostly geared towards expanding the tax base and raising revenues. It comes as President Ruto's government seeks to meet its ambitious first budget of $26.2 billion for the year 2023-2024.
Budget, my friend, we are using is Uhuru's budget. The budget you will hold me to account is the one we are discussing. You know, when you have a budget in place, even if you came into office today, unless you go to parliament to change the way the budget is funded, you can't. They had budgeted to borrow in that budget. They had budgeted to borrow 1.1 trillion. I came using the supplementary budget, I cut it down by 300 billion, right? But you see, the train had left the station.
Some of the changes in the bill include a tax hike of 30 to 35% for persons earning monthly income above $500,000 Kenyan shilling. But the two particular proposals in this new bill that has raised eyebrows: an increment of tax on petroleum products from the current 8% to 16% starting July. The other changes to the Employment Act, a mandatory housing tax that seeks to deduct 3% from employees' basic salaries, which will be matched by another 3% by employers to help fund the government's ambitious housing project. Opposition leaders and labor unions alike have rejected the housing tax proposal, as much as it's capped at 5,000 Kenyan shillings, just about $36. Both, now threatening industrial action, have since moved to urge parliamentarians not to adopt the 2023 finance bill, as concerted push from the ruling party in the House to have the bill passed edges on.
Government, when it came into power, they said that they will see the cost of living reduced. But looking at the proposals within the finance bill, I think it's more or less denting the consumers' pockets. So that is a valid point that they are bringing to the table, that this current finance bill, if you look at the balance of it, all the misses and the hits, or look way at the tax proposals that have been placed within the current bill, and just assessment is just that the cost of living will still continue trending higher.
Kenyans have until May 20th to submit their memoranda on the finance bill set by the National Assembly.
On May 17th, our partners VOA reporter on Chad's border with Sudan heard gunfire and explosions and witnessed bodies, casualties, and even stray bullets coming across the border from the town of Tandelti, Sudan, about 900 meters away. Observers say concerns are growing that the intense violence in Sudan's western Darfur region could spread to neighboring countries. Meanwhile, Chad's police chief told Voice of Africa he's urging citizens to remain calm.
In the town of Kafrun on Chad's border with Sudan, the sound of gunfire is heard coming from the town of Tendelti, about 900 metres to the east. Fighting had broken out overnight there between ethnic Arab armed groups and what witnesses said were black Sudanese civilians attempting to defend themselves from what they referred to as Janjaweed. Injured men began coming across the border to seek refuge and medical attention.
There have been clashes over the border, and some have entered the town. Some of us tried to defend ourselves.
A vehicle arrives to take the injured man to the nearest medical centre. Analysts say that intercommunal violence in West Darfur, triggered by Sudan's internal conflict, which started on April 15th, is likely to spread across the border to Chad.
It's not in the interest of Europe or the United States or anyone for Sudan to continue to be in conflict, because it's 100% positive that the continuation and prolonging conflict in Sudan will spill over.
Back in Kafrun, chaos sets in among the thousands of Sudanese refugees who fled into Chad. The bodies of friends and relatives begin to arrive across the border. The refugees pulled the shirts over the faces of the deceased, makeshift shrouds. VOA counted at least 3 bodies. For some, the scenes were too much. Analysts point out that the Darfur War of 2003 quickly spread to this area of Chad.
It's something that's very dangerous and that can very easily spread the fightings to Chad, because the composition of the forces in presence itself, it's very ethnic.
Chadian security forces begin to clear the area of crowds as more bodies come in. Later in the day, the Chadian chief of police, Hamid Daouda, gave this comment to VOA on the events that took place in Kafrun.
If it happened that the rebel Sudanese shot the gun or not under the Sudan government, I've said that all the measures has been taken. All are in control now. So if you have seen it happen, it will not happen next again. From where they saw it coming, measure is taken to master it. Thank you. Keep cool, and walk. Keep cool.
500 metres inside Chad, one bullet hit the ground nearby and another zipped past. Some members of the crowd began to panic and retreat. This reporter left the area.
South Africa has a prison population of over 150,000. Some of those held behind bars await to be released and reintegrated in their communities. However, one of the major challenges ex-convicts face in South Africa is unemployment.
South Africa has a prison population of over 150,000. Some of those held behind bars await to be released and reintegrated in their communities. However, one of the major challenges ex-convicts face in South Africa is unemployment. Criminologist and researcher Africa Munyai explains that the country's law stipulates that an ex-offender can apply for the expungement of their criminal record 10 years from the date of conviction, provided they have not been convicted of any other offense during the 10-year period.
According to our engagement, when we're engaging with ex-offenders, the challenges that we find is that ex-offenders normally, they go into prison, they obtain certain skills, whether it's artisan, whether it's bricklaying, whatever that it might be. But now when they come out of prison, they can't find employment. Why? Because of the criminal record issue. So whenever either they are seeking for funding for their businesses, they are not qualifying because of the criminal record.
In countries like the US, businesses that hire former convicts are given tax breaks by the government. In South Africa, some believe that this type of model could persuade employers to hire ex-prisoners.
If the government indeed can play that role, that is engaging with companies, that is engaging with corporate and saying, you know what, if you employ these people, we will cut your tax, we'll do 1, 2, 3 and all of that.
Former inmate Robert Mulife spent close to 5 years behind bars after being found guilty of robbery. Mulife, now reformed, is one of the lucky ones. He got a job as soon as he was released in prison in 2001.
I think with me, I was lucky. I would put it that way, I was lucky. Because there are guys who come out with skills. When they come, it's like they've got criminal record, they end up relapsing. Because you have to stay 10 years and then you can go and get a criminal record.
According to a study on challenges faced by ex-offenders in South Africa by Professor Victor Chikadze, it is estimated that between 80% to 94% of released prisoners re-offend. This is attributed to ex-convicts being ostracized in the job market.
Still speaking about the unemployment rate in South Africa, unemployment rose 0.2% in the first 3 months of this year, pushing the unemployment rate to 32.9%. This is the highest rate on record for South Africa and is showing no sign of decline.
The worsening power crisis is crippling the economy. Small businesses are closing shop, unable to cope, while big businesses are spending their money on alternative energy instead of hiring new staff. The expanded unemployment rate, which includes those discouraged from seeking work, now sits at 42.4%.
Certainly not a huge surprise if you consider the environment where we're in. If you can think about the persistence of electricity outages, the severity of the electricity outages, if you think about higher interest rates, low confidence, then it's no surprise that we just can't continue to absorb the emerging population in South Africa.
The picture is more worrying for young people entering the workforce. Youth unemployment increased 1.1% to 46.5%.
So when you look at the load shedding, what we know is that it costs the economy around about 2% GDP growth on an annual basis. If you said to me, what is the lost opportunity in terms of jobs, that's probably in the order of 200 to 300,000 jobs a year. So it's not necessarily that we're losing significant number of jobs. It's the lost opportunity. How many jobs could we have created if we didn't have load shedding? And in my mind, that's probably around about the 300,000 mark.
There's been several interventions, even with the private sector, to address unemployment. Some programs have been successful, but still not enough to absorb the millions of young people looking for work.
I think private sector have really, in many places, led the charge in terms of inclusive hiring. And what the private sector is, where they are right now, is that they have a host of challenges that they're trying to address. And I think employment is almost a byproduct of some of the other challenges that need to be dealt with.
We've got 600,000 people into the labor market. In order to absorb 600,000 people, how fast would the economy have to grow? And that estimate is around about 4% on a sustained basis. So it's not really going to help us if we grow 4% for 1 year and then we slip back to 1% or 2%.
Economists have warned that real job creation will only occur when GDP growth approaches at least 3% per annum. South Africa was last there in 2005 and is nowhere close to getting back there as long as the power crisis continues.
Cyclone Freddy caused many deaths as well as destruction, devastation and displacement across Mozambique. But month-on Mozambicans are rallying their energies and resources to rebuild and restore the communities.
Cyclone Freddy first made landfall in Mozambique's Inhaban province before disappearing towards Madagascar. It was along these shores in Zambezia that it circled back and pounded the country for a second time.
I don't think people had the enough knowledge what the magnitude would be of this cyclone. And as naturally as we all know, when you have a roof, you think you are protected. We need to start preparing for the next cyclone, which we don't know when it's coming, and we need to strengthen the early warning systems so this becomes part of our life, our daily life.
Mozambique's geographic position places it on the path to most cyclones in this region, making it one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change.
Firoza Ismail's restaurant on the beach managed to stay standing despite gusty winds and falling trees. She admits it was a lucky escape.
Last year we had floods. This year we had a cyclone. I believe we need to look at this area and add more trees so we can avoid soil erosion. Our beach is being lost to erosion. I don't really understand how we can stop this. What we need are specialized people who can help improve and save our beach from climate change.
Freddy has been the longest and strongest tropical cyclone to hit Mozambique. It brought twice the average monthly rainfall in just a few days, which many weren't prepared for.
Zambezia is just a province that's prone to floods and drought, but I think with climate change and all the concepts that are coming up, this was really one of the biggest disasters for this province.
Homes and infrastructure takes years to reconstruct and government lacks the funds. Many in the community are coming together to rebuild schools and hospitals.
The government will rebuild the schools, which is going to take a long time. But our association has a project to reconstruct schools and some hospitals to give back to the community.
There have been moves towards a more climate-resilient strategy. The country recently signed a multi-million-dollar deal with the European Union to lessen the impact of extreme weather events on people and infrastructure.
In Ghana, the Gift of Chess, a U.S. aid group, has set up a workshop in Ghana producing chess pieces for women's empowerment and youth development. The group is using chess to create jobs and strengthen communities through the game.
Evelyn Upeta earns about $100 per month making chess pieces at a workshop in Ghana's capital using 3D modeling and a printing machine. The workshop, funded by the New York-based aid group The Gift of Chess and operated by local group Clean Afrique 64, hires and trains young women like Upeta.
Chess has really helped me. At first, I don't know how to type. Now I'm learning how to type. And at first, I don't know how to use a 3D printer. Now I know how to use it. and now I can produce a chess piece. And I'm very sure this will help me in the near future.
The popularity of the strategic thinking game as a tool for community development is growing in Africa. The Gift of Chess sponsors tournaments and has donated 1,000 chess sets to underprivileged youth programs in Ghana, Kenya and Uganda, and more than 2,500 to Nigeria. Since starting local production this year in Ghana, the team has sent more than 50 chess sets to schools and youth centers and taught scores of young women how to play.
I think this particular program is going to go a long way to support the girls to think outside the box. And as you know, chess is a thinking game. So as they engage in chess, they're able to, widen their scope, their thinking scope. And I think it's going to have a long way, a great impact, on their, upbringing and then their social background.
The workshop also teaches young women computer skills and programming for production.
We owe it as part of our corporate social responsibility to develop the communities we find ourselves in. And in every community that we go to, we will be concerned about the well-being of the people we train. Some of the people live in very difficult circumstances. So we just don't teach them how to play chess. We teach them a lot of other life skills to help them build their confidence, prepare them for life.
As the popularity of chess grows, the aid group hopes to get enough support to expand production in coming months.
Kenyan athlete and 10-kilometer road race world record holder Ronex Kipruto has been provisionally suspended for an anti-doping violation. Kipruto, who also won a 10,000-meter bronze medal in the 2019 World Championships, broke the 10-kilometer road race world record in 2020. Kenyan athlete and 10-kilometer road race world record holder Ronex Kipruto has been provisionally suspended for an anti-doping violation, the Athletics Integrity Unit AIU said on Wednesday. Kipruto, who also won a 10,000-meter bronze medal in the 2019 World Championships, broke the 10-kilometer road race world record in 2020. The AIU said on Twitter that Kipruto had been suspended for the use of a prohibited substance and method, ABP. ABP refers to the athlete's biological passport, which shows discrepancies that can reveal the effects of doping. The AIU added that a notice of the charge has been issued to the 23-year-old runner.
It's really embarrassed and it's really killing the upcoming generation, and we hope the government and AIU, and I'm happy for AIU because he has already tightened up the how to manage these robbers, and I think that will be a huge benefit for the young generation not to go through that shortcut.
The ABP, athlete's biological passports, can show discrepancies that can reveal the effect of doping. Kipruto set the 10-kilometer record of 26 minutes 24 seconds in Valencia in 2020. It finished a disappointing 9th in the 10,000 meter at the Olympics in 2021. Close on 70 Kenyan athletes, mainly distance runners, have been banned in the last 5 years for drugs offenses in a crisis that has tarnished the East African track and field powerhouse.
Mo Farah is really inspiration for a young generation like us, and hope to run more years like Mo Farah is race, and I'm looking forward to run with Mo Farah on Sunday. I wish him good luck.
In March, AIU head Brett Clothier warned during a visit to Kenya that the international anti-doping body was stepping up its investigations and testing in the country. The AIU also said in April, Kenyan athletes were being assisted in covering up doping offenses by a medically savvy operation. Its claims followed an investigation into falsified medical documents from marathon runner Betty Wilson Lempus and 800-meter specialist Egley Nalyanya. Lempus was given a 5-year doping ban in January. Nalyanya was suspended this month for 8 years for using a prohibited substance. Kenya reacted by promising on April 20 it would more than triple annual drug testing of athletes. Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwambe said Kenya was targeting 3,445 tests a year compared to the current 1,000 for its 37,900 athletes and support personnel. To end this news edition, here's a recap of our top stories. Human resources have always been an asset for Africa, and yet there's the problem of the birth rate in African countries and in Benin. South Africa has a prison population of over 150,000. Some of those held behind bars are waiting to be released and reintegrated in their communities. Concerns are growing that the intense violence in Sudan's Western Darfur region would spread to neighboring countries. Here we'll conclude today's news edition, coming to you live from Gulf TV Africa. Enjoy the rest of your day.